Three, two, one. All right, party people, we're back. It's been a while since I did my last episode, but excited to introduce my guest today. His name is Abhay, and he's the founder and CEO of GetBit.in, company that that I've been hearing a lot about, company that we're working alongside, a company that I look up to, and so really, really excited to do this interview with you. How are you today?
I'm good, Sunny. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate your time up here and being in front of your audience. You are the real OG from India and Bitcoin perspective. So, really honored to be talking to you. And yeah, it'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pumped about it. What do you think about my background? I recently did a little bit of I had like a different vibe going. Do you like the bookshelf in the back? Look okay?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we're all into reading in this house, so I thought I'd switch it up a bit. Cool. So, I mean, let's get into it. I like to start with three, basic questions. Like I said, no gotchas. The first one is really even before we get into Bitcoin, what's your story? All I know is you live in Seattle. I know you're building, a company that is exciting. And but before all of that, what's your story?
Yeah, so just from a chronological perspective, out of my business school, went on to join a internet dating startup. This was really early in the 2000s, and it was in India at that point of time. Internet was really early, and I remember going to cyber cafes and trying to. There's something called a cyber cafe for your audience, where basically I don't know if today's world and generation would remember, where internet was a thing where you go to a particular, like, think of it like a coffee house, and you have a computer there, and you can browse the internet there. So from there to that didn't work out, and then I got burnt a little bit and joined a traditional brick and mortar bank. I went to Citibank, worked there for 13 years and then did another startup on the growth side, went to Amazon, worked on technology side, and then finally um, kind of understood Bitcoin to a next layer of understanding. So 2013 is when I first got exposed to Bitcoin. I ignored it. I was at a bank. I thought it's a Ponzi scheme. I think it's for it's for people who want to trade illegally, or for bad stuff. Then 2017, it again came to me when I was at Amazon and I was looking at what could be the various ways in people could pay each other, especially internationally, and could it be an alternative to credit card, because international credit card adoption was still very low, and we wanted to serve customers. And that's when I got into a little deep. And then 2020 during COVID is when I really did some bit of reading. So it's my laziness. I didn't spend the time to understand Bitcoin and understand what this is about. And then when finally I got a little introduced to it, then I saw, read the white paper, understood Bitcoin a little more, understood Lightning, and that's when all the things of what is my payments experience and banking experience and technology experience kind of connected together. And I thought this is like a such a big opportunity, where I finally landed with this whole conviction, where what internet did to information, Bitcoin is doing to money. And I hung up my boots at Amazon and started GetBit. So that's what my journey has been.
That's exciting. That's fascinating. Wow, I didn't know that. So you're 13 years, and what I mean, Citibank is probably the biggest, right? One of the biggest, if not banks in
Yes.
the world, and then Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world. What a fascinating background. Can we double click a little bit? I'm just curious. So what like that aha moment that you had, around. Well, first of all, even before we get into Bitcoin, I wanted to ask you about you. So where are you born are you from Seattle originally, or where are you from?
No,
Are you
I
from
was
India?
born and raised in India. I am
Okay.
from a small town in eastern part of India called Dhanbad. It got famous with the movie Gangs of Wasipur in Bollywood. That's where I was born and grew up. My father was a coal miner, and I remember as a kid going into a coal mine. so, so that's where I was born and brought up. And I moved to the U.S. Pretty late as I was working with Amazon in that capacity. I moved to the US and because Amazon was in Seattle, and that's how I'm in Seattle.
Interesting, interesting. Wow. So yeah, so just curious. So I guess as we kind of, segue from your story, and I'd love to spend more time on that as well, into kind of the Bitcoin story. What was it? I know, for example, certain things like you have ca what's it called? Not cashback, but chargebacks. Something
Yeah.
that seems very uh primitive. You have just, I mean, when I even think about credit cards, it's such a funny experience, no? It's like you're talking to the guy, ordering a pizza, and then you hand the guy the very numbers that he needs to steal your money.
Right. Yeah. So there's
Like it
this
just seems
very,
so
very
archaic. So yeah, to
Yeah,
talk a
it's
little bit
very,
about
very
that.
interesting. Where my experience at Citibank, at Amazon, I realized that the world, at least in the West, is built on credit card, which is a pull-based system, which effectively means that someone comes when that pizza guy actually is dipping a hand into your piggy bank or your bank account and pulling the money out. That's a pull-based system versus a push-based system where you authorize saying, okay, I've agreed, Sunny, that I want to pay you $20, and then I authorize and I give some permission to say push the money out, which is traditionally what has happened. So if you think about cash, traditionally you put your hand in your wallet, you don't let that other guy permission to put his or her hand into your physical wallet and pull out the bill. So you literally hand over the dollar bills to the cashier if you're doing in person shopping. But the way credit card has just evolved and industry which has grown is a pull based mechanism versus a push based. And those pieces, and if you think about India moved to a lot of push based system with UPI. And that's again push based and not pull based, which means you every time you pay someone, you authorize and you push the money away from your bank account. So that basic understanding of how pull and push works and how lightning could be and lightning again is a push based mechanism where you take the address of the recipient and then you push out the money. It kind of connected the dots of how money could move on the internet and how push based systems might be more scalable, secure from a customer perspective. Of course, there are some advantages of pull-based methods where subscription and other things work, but you could also make subscription work in a push-based system. So that's pull and push as a nuance of saying, if you look at it from a very layman perspective, credit card works where you give permission to the merchant. Actually, you don't even give permission. You just give the card details, and the merchant actually puts his or her hand into your wallet and pulls the money out. Versus push-based systems, which is Lightning, UPI, is where you actually push the money away out from like handing over a tender a physical dollar bill. And just as a separate nuance, the credit card was created to be used in person commerce. So I was supposed to be in front of you. I was supposed to be in physical possession of a card, and I was supposed to hand over that card to you physically so that you can swipe it on some machine or terminal, and then I could get possession back of the card. That's how the credit card was created in the 40s and 50s. But as the internet came about, it was all reprogrammed, refurbished to try and fit into the online ecosystem. So it's not natively designed for online. We might feel it works very beautifully, because of all the bells and whistles and the lipstick on the pig people have created to ensure that the experience for a consumer is very good. But if you look at it of how the transaction actually settles and how it works behind under the hood, it's super messy, and has multiple risks and multiple counterparty risks which are associated with all of those transactions, which lead into chargeback. And that is what we are seeing, that if you now go to many places which accept credit cards, they'll say, I'll take a fee on over and above that. So if I was paying some credit card bill to I think to the Department of Licensing, and it was a $35 or $30 bill, and they charged me a $7 fee on top of it. So that cost will get passed on to the customer or the consumer. There is no free lunch ultimately, and we might think there's a free lunch, and we might feel great about our points that I use a Amex, or I use a or a platinum card, and I get 2% points, and I get access to this fancy lounge. Ultimately, you are paying for it. How you're paying for it? Because that cost is being passed to the merchant. Merchant has to run a business, so either the merchant has to reduce the quality of his or her offering products so that they can still run a viable business, or to charge you back. So ultimately, as if you look at it from a core first principles perspective, that there's no free lunches, and if you are getting something, you are paying for it, even if you don't feel like you're paying for it. Is where all of these dots connected, and and I feel that we need a more transparent payment system where people can really feel and understand that what is that they're paying for, what's the merchant and the payer relationship, and how costs are distributed. Otherwise, what happens is, as a consumer of a credit card, I feel great that I'm paying for it, but and I'm receiving rewards. But then you have these experience where you pay for a Department of Licensing, and you pay $7 on top of it, and you pay for it because you're saying, okay, I have no other option but to pay for it. So there are these hidden gotchas which are there, and it feels smooth till it works. But I believe there's an opportunity and a time where digital experiences, digital life needs a digital native payment instrument, and that's where Lightning comes in, which is digitally native, designed for digital transactions, and it's a push-based system. So yeah,
So, no, no,
maybe I
no,
went
that's
into a
awesome.
rant and
So no, no, no. Well, that's the point. I call this Bitcoin stories. Yeah. So it's I think we could go on some rants on Bitcoin. That's fine. But I was gonna ask you. So you brought up UPI. Did you watch I think yesterday, Miss El Salvador, if I'm not mistaken, was interviewing Miss India. I think. Did you see this? It kind of went
yeah,
viral,
I
and
passed through the through on
somebody.
X on my feed, but I didn't. Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe she knew about Bitcoin or something. I guess, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. She knew about it, Bitcoin. Her explanation was actually spot on. I was quite impressed. I was gonna ask you something. So you brought up UPI, and as did she. She brought up, well, payments in Bitcoin doesn't occur in India. She said, however, we have something called UPI, and it's, quite widespread, et cetera, et cetera. And you also mentioned, well, UPI corrects for this, right? It's not pull, it's push. So just for, like, let's say for the layman, right? For the person who's maybe just getting into Bitcoin, too afraid to ask these kind of questions. What's the like what so why not just use UPI? Why would
Yeah.
you need something like Bitcoin if UPI exists?
So think of, if you are experiencing UPI, think of Lightning as global UPI. So if you are doing UPI, what you need an orchestration platform which is able to orchestrate value transfer and movement of money. And that can work within Indian jurisdiction and Indian rupees. Now, if you are, and there is UPI which is going and putting in effort to plug in Dubai and Singapore and trying to take it international. But think of it like, at a protocol level, what UPI enabled was any bank or any individual can easily plug into that protocol. So it's a protocol. And no individual integration or individual merchants have to go and integrate with each of the banks. So they're like whatever, hundreds of banks in India. And if you were to, as a merchant, collect money from the banking rails of India, then pre UPI, you had to go and find a way to connect to each of the banks, because each banks have their separate proprietary accounting software and their accounting. You need to be able to communicate that accounting software to check whether Sunny or Abhay's account has the money, and then be able to get authorization to take that money, or get allow Sunny or Abhay to pay you that. Now, imagine that on top of that, there is a protocol layer of UPI which has been created. All merchants can plug in, or even via a Google Pay or a Phone Pay, which are other service provider who are giving access to this API. And then that API layer is where all banks are plugged in. So suddenly, you don't, as a merchant, need to worry about where the customer's banking is, and you can easily plug in through API to this orchestration layer or a single protocol, and that protocol then can ping Sunny's account in State Bank of India or HDFC Bank or a Citibank, and then check whether they have money and get Sunny's authorization and take the money. Now you expand that to globally, saying you, let's say I'm in India and you are in Canada, and for some reason you want to pay me, or I want to, for this conversation, let's say we want to tip you $10. Now, how does that happen? For UPI to work, there has to be, each country in the world has to plug to UPI. So that becomes the same infrastructure problem which was there, where merchant wants to now plug into each of the banks. Now imagine an orchestration layer which is Lightning, which comes in. It's a protocol. All banks, or one infrastructure provider, a couple of infrastructure provider in Canada plug into Lightning. UPI plugs into Lightning, and then wow, we can global interoperable payments at the scale of cents, and with the cost of pennies, can uh, interoperably seamlessly work. So what would happen? My service provider in India, which might be a UPI service provider, would say that now I'm requesting money from Sunny, and Sunny is in Canada, and that call will go to a Lightning infrastructure provider. Lightning infrastructure provider will see where is Sunny's location, see which is the account. So when you give a destination address, it will know where to check and which API to endpoint to call. It will call either Sunny authorizes or doesn't authorize. If it authorizes, instant messaging and instant settlement will happen, and I'll get my rupees, or you will get your Canadian dollars, whichever way we are trying to do the transaction. So I see Lightning as a global UPI.
But isn't Bitcoin itself a global UPI because you're able to
Yeah.
commerce? Like what, why would you call Lightning that? Doesn't Lightning just make it cheaper and faster? Like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. So if you wanted to do $10 transaction or $5 transaction, like last couple of hours, the transaction fee on the main chain was whatever, 40, 30, $40. It was super congested. And then you will need to wait for an hour. And in this transaction, like a UPI or a merchant transaction, you want instant confirmation. So there are the two reasons why: one from a cost perspective, and second from the time it takes to settle that value perspective. You need an orchestration layer which is able to work at that speed and scale, and settle finally. So that's where I see Lightning versus the base layer for the global UPI. And why I do think there's an opportunity for Lightning to orchestrate between each country is building their own domestic settlement, real-time domestic settlement infrastructure. So, like Brazil has PIX, and Singapore has something. Um, uh, India has UPI. US is trying to build FedNow and some other services. But Lightning then comes in, or even proprietary systems like Venmo or Cash App. All of these systems are basically having an opportunity to connect to Lightning as a protocol, and then they become globally interoperable. Otherwise,
Mm-mm.
today, if I have Venmo and I don't know what's the most common system that you use for peer-to-peer payments in Canada. I don't know if there's something which exists, but the equivalent of a Venmo or a Cash App or some prepaid wallet. I don't know if there's something which exists.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I mean, in some ways, because I don't want to say I intimately understand India's UPI, but it feels like in some ways India's ahead of Canada on that sense, right? Like I don't think we have something like UPI, that's for sure. Venmo, I don't think exists. We have things like PayPal, obviously,
Yeah, it's
but
example you are on
yeah,
PayPal and
yeah.
I'm on Venmo, right? I'm in the US, I'm on Venmo, and you are on PayPal. We are completely isolated. These are two systems which don't talk to each other. Now, get a lightning infrastructure in between, it suddenly makes it interoperable. Venmo can connect to Lightning, PayPal can connect to Lightning, and you settle interoperably across any system, any currency across the world. So
Interesting.
that's where I think the world is going, where I believe that people still have not scratched the surface of Lightning. And if you think about payments, then payments is basically a bottleneck which stops commerce from flourishing. Because there are no easy payment rails, it is hard for a individual creator to serve a global economy. Imagine a world in which everyone can serve everyone, then I can potentially, sitting in India, do a virtual assistant service for you, even as simple as you are rushing to your airport to get you checked into your airline, confirm back to you, maybe on WhatsApp or maybe something else, and get paid $1 for it. That's the scale at which I believe peer-to-peer payment unlocking, and I'm only able to envisage a very small sliver of services based on my life experiences. But imagine entrepreneurs who are unleashing their creative energies and say, I can get paid internationally and globally. It could be as simple as I could get a maths homework done for you. I could do a cooking lesson for you, and I could help you um, uh, do language lessons. There's a world of services that digitally we can deliver, and I have one friend of mine who does stand-up comedy, and I was thinking that why can't he run a way in which, let's say, I have a special event in my family, it might be anniversary, my birthday, and I could do a stand-up comedian on the web. He could deliver this out of India for my Seattle friends and family, and it could be very personalized, and he could get paid 100 $200 for that show. It could be great for entertaining my friends and family for that special occasion, and 100 $200 might be financially viable for him to be able to do it. um, and he can run a business, and if he has 20-30 such shows in a month, he or she can very easily viably run his lifestyle in India. That's just one example of how I think peer-to-peer payment unlocking would unlock. Imagine 8 billion people in the service of 8 billion people, as Jeff Booth talks about it sometimes. So that is where payments is the bottleneck, which creates these silos, which creates these quasi rent seeking aggregators where you have to go and create content at a particular place, and then that content creator then extracts a large part of the value as part of fees, and then just to be able to ensure that communication and commerce can happen between two individuals who might not be in the same geographical boundary.
That's yeah, no, I like that. So when I describe what Bitcoin is, my kind of like description is it's Bitcoin is the world's first open source, decentralized digital currency and payment network. So the reason I find most people find it confusing is because it's actually two things in one. It's a payment network, like we just, have been talking about for the last half an hour, but it's also a currency, right? So just curious, it seems like you have like a really an affinity towards the payment network side. Curious what your thoughts are on the other side of the fence in terms of it being this almost like this digital gold type of currency, yeah?
See, any currency needs to have a payment network because if you have a currency which cannot be exchanged, then there's not a currency at all, right? So, inherently, when we define currency, I believe if I define dollar as a currency, I should be able to have a bill which is nothing but a ability for me to exchange that currency. So that's the payment network of a dollar bill without the internet. Now the digital version of it could be credit card and Venmo and all of that. So currency inherently needs to be able to be exchanged because if it's a store of value, we are storing value at some point of time. I will think of it like a battery. If I've stored my energy in that battery, and then I need to use that battery when life throws some curveball at me, and I should be able to take that battery and use some charge of that battery to serve my life purposes. So I think and let's take any example. Every currency already has an inherent payment network very closely coupled to it for it to be of any material value to humanity. So I think of them as very, very commingled. And there is this whole piece of payment network and currency together. What is happening, at least on the store of value side, is, in my opinion, Bitcoin is just gaining the monetary premium, and that is the opportunity on store of value piece. So because no one trusts its internet money, funny money, or gaming token for a large part of the world, and as that is becoming more a common currency for the world, it is just acquiring monetary premium, acquiring monetary premium, acquiring monetary premium. And that is where it becomes a store of value. So the first X number of years, when it is just getting distributed among people, it just starts adding more and more monetary premium and its value goes up versus from ab initio by a diktat of a law or by someone to say it has inherent value because inherently it has no value, right? So that's yeah,
So so
maybe a
so
tangent rant again.
No, no, it's great. So curious, before we maybe get into your business a little bit more, I'm really interested because you're from India, you sit in the United States, and some very, very, very exciting things have occurred this year, right, in the United States. So just curious, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings about it? Being an entrepreneur early in this space, now seeing the world kind of, converge or conspire in your favor. It's like must be a nice feeling. But just curious, now you're sitting, right in the United States, right, where all the action is. So curious, how are
Yeah.
you feeling about it?
Yeah, so I think this seems like unreal. Even if 6 months ago or 9 months ago, someone would have asked, saying, when you're going through choke point 2.0 and you're getting debanked and you're having all of these challenges to new administration coming across and saying they want to put Bitcoin as Bitcoin strategic reserve is a complete unreal thing. I can't imagine if someone would have asked me a year back or 18 months back whether this will any time happen in the 2020s. I would have said 0% chance of it. Maybe 2035 or 36 is what I would have put that earliest kind of timeline to. And that's the same place that today I feel Bitcoin is in India, where it is still really early. Very, very few people understand it. There are challenges and bottlenecks of being able to do a Bitcoin business in India. Of course, you have faced the apex level of those challenges and solved some of that. And and courtesy and thanks to all the hard work, the 2020 Supreme Court of India circular or judgment, not a circular judgment, was a very, very important milestone. And the Bitcoin community in India is forever indebted to you and to everyone who was associated in getting us through the line. I'm sure it's a lot of battle in the trenches, and so fortunately, because of that, we can still exist and survive and still serve the community. But it's still early. Compare that to what has happened in the United States in the last couple of weeks, actually, of how the narrative is shifting. I'm very, very positive that that will have an influence on the India narrative, because historically India has looked up to United States and to the West to get some guidance on how new technology is to be looked at, how rules and regulations have to be formulated in. So I think it's very exciting times. I think there's a huge opportunity, but a lot of work to be done, because if you look at it from an India perspective, it's still a lot of generic crypto altcoins. They have a lot of say, and everyone understands of it in one single category of Bitcoin, and everything else is in one single bucket and category. So work needs to be done on differentiating that and why it is different, and how to apply a monetary lens, and has to be done at a very accelerated pace, because if in January, if Trump really puts out the strategic Bitcoin reserve out, then it really the world kind of quickly goes into scramble mode for each of the sovereign nations to see what does it imply for them, and how quickly they have to understand this asset class, and how quickly this becomes from it being an internet or a digital phenomena for young and people who want to take a risky bet, to how it can become very critical to the integrity and ability for the nation to serve its citizens.
Yeah, yeah, well said, well said. Um, so I agree with you that yeah, I think India does often mirror what happens in the United States. Have you ever heard of the term Indian Standard Time? You know how Indian
I
people
have.
show up late to parties, but then they say, oh,
Yes.
it's IST or whatever. And that kind of applies to I mean, the culture a little bit, right? Because the internet, for example, did not start in India, but it definitely finished there. I mean, like, you could argue that there's probably more smartphone penetration, more IT professionals, just there's a real buzz. And India's really embraced the internet revolution, right? So I think something similar is maybe to happen, right? With Bitcoin, when you look at Bitcoin, people call it digital gold. I read the other day that Indian women own more gold than the United States government, right? So you look at these things and you have a tech-savvy population, you have a young population, you have a gold-loving population, you have a probably the biggest inward remitter in the world. So when you kind of look at all these different, and then a couple more things I want to add on there. So, in China, when Bitcoin was banned, it was banned. There was no ability for people to fight back like we did right at Uno Coin. So there's also this like judicial system that maybe is a bit noisy and messy, but it works. It does, it does work in the favor of the people. And so curious with all these like confluence of different kind of demographics and trends, where do you see the future of Bitcoin and India? Like, let's say if we fast forward, five, I mean, you said a year ago you would never even predicted what happened with Trump. So if you had to put on that hat, that little bit optimistic hat, right? How fast do you think India could wake up and do you see some potential big, seismic shifts in the 2025 year?
Yeah, so I don't expect any seismic shift in 2025, apart from the strategic Bitcoin reserve story pushing the narrative. So that's one, like the wild card. If suddenly someone, if the United States starts pushing on that strategic Bitcoin reserve piece and starts accumulating Bitcoin, then that will like streamroll Bitcoin understanding, or will get it'll get pushed that every central banker and politician and head of state will have to understand it, because it just becomes like a defense and sovereignty topic. So keeping that aside, I think what's very interesting from an India perspective is their love for gold. I personally believe that gold was nothing but an expression of hard money, where you say that my sovereignty is linked to this store of value which cannot be debased by anyone. And if you look at India from a historical 2000-year lens perspective, it was always a lot of smaller states and smaller kingdoms which were within India as and there was a porous nature of movement, and there was people which were moving. So example, if you talk about north of India, then within the Delhi region and within the Varanasi region, there would be some separate kings and states who will be ruling that area. And depending on how that kingdom is and how that king is treating its citizens, there was a porous movement of people from leaving a particular place and going to another place. So what we say that vote by exiting and what vote by having Bitcoin, and people, I think, intuitively did that by having gold. You could have gold and you could exit a particular place and go to a particular new place and start your life all over, because you had that hard money. Over the last 500 years, that whole narrative in terms of the understanding is culturally embedded, but we have lost the language of why gold. Why wear gold? Why have gold in your possession? Why give gold in weddings as gift versus any other of utility? Think of it like a washing machine and a car, will be much more useful for a young couple versus gold, which will just go and lie in the couple's locker and not serve any immediate need. But if you go a couple levels deeper on this, it could potentially mean that this is hard money, store it. If and you can keep working hard to get your washing machine and microwave ovens and buy the new car and live a good life. But this hard money we are gifting to you as blessing, because this hard money will save you if life throws a curveball at you, or will save you from debasement. And all of that thought process is already there in that cultural mix. So what that is what I'm very excited about, that hopefully, as we are able to educate people of why gold and why Bitcoin could have the same properties of gold, and why having sovereignty over a asset which belongs to you in your physical possession, which is nothing but another way of saying self custody, is all attributes which are there in Bitcoin. It's digital, and hopefully the new gen people understand technology better. So there is a whole movement of a younger person disliking gold, saying, "Oh, this is for my parents and my grandparents' age, and I don't store value in gold. It's an old concept, and I have moved to stocks and bonds and digital trading and stuff." And I'm hoping that they will be able to we will be able to create content and language saying what were the properties of gold, why was your parents and grandparents storing monetary energy in gold, and what is the equivalent version of that in the digital age, and why you might want to just use Bitcoin as the new equivalent of digital gold and store your monetary energy there, so that you and your financial well-being is much more protected, while the external factors in the world, whether it's the state or whether it's other circumstances, keep doing what they are supposed to do. So there's entropy in the world, and that entropy, this is a protection against that entropy, or saving your monetary energy in a way which where you can still dip into it if need be in the future. So that's how I think about the opportunity in India.
Cool. Love it. Love it. Yeah, so yeah, you have such an interesting vantage point. So let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about your business. Like what in the, I mean, starting your own business is definitely sounds a lot harder than working at Amazon. It seems like a big risk, both reputationally and career-wise and everything. So what made you say, okay, not only am I a believer in this technology, but I also want to, build something?
Yeah. So, Sunny, the way it worked for me was that once I understood Bitcoin to a next layer, then what I understood is that it is unprecedented opportunity for anyone wanting to build in this space. Of course, there are challenges, but this is like once in a multi-generational change, and maybe 500,000 years. How often does a monetary system get ruffled and changed into something new? So it's a huge opportunity. And when you say from an opportunity perspective, it'll come with its own challenges. So it's an unprecedented opportunity. And then historically, whenever I've worked on a business opportunity, it has largely created value, but also had a lot of like a gotchas or negative elements of it. If I was working on a social media company, and then social media might have a lot of value creation, but it also has a lot of challenges in terms of how people are getting addicted to screens and social media and not enjoying life. But if you extrapolate that to Bitcoin, it just every individual that you are able to touch with Bitcoin in a 5 to 10 year time frame, you make that person, that society, that individual, that community better than what they were. So it just becomes like such a powerful motivator, saying that not only it's great from a financial outcome perspective for everyone who's involved in it, from an opportunity perspective, it is also that as you go through the pain of building this, communicating this, and being called out that this is not good, and you fail and you have those challenges, everyone that you touch in that process, in a 5 or 10 year time period, each of that individual, and I mean everyone, every individual that we touch, so everyone that we've hired, everyone who's left us, everyone that we've spoken who's dismissed us, every like API provider or company or people that we've talked about, each of that individual person, company will adopt Bitcoin and will be thankful that at some point of time, GetBit and we had an opportunity to touch them and introduce them to Bitcoin. So I think that's such a powerful motivator that it is good for me, good for everyone that we touch in this process, good for everyone associated with it, and good for humanity. So yeah, it just becomes a spiritual experience to say, if I'm not doing this, I'm doing a disservice. This is an opportunity that my soul was provided by an higher being. And if I am letting go this opportunity, then I am letting go the biggest, maybe the biggest calling of my life.
Jerome Powell. Sorry, is it good for his soul? No, I'm asking because I mean, who knows why the Bitcoin price tumbled a little bit yesterday, but some people are saying it's because of his comments. Are you tracking that? Any because I think he said something along the lines of, "Oh, Federal Reserve can't hold Bitcoin," and I think a lot of people took that as, "Oh, Trump's not going to succeed at what he's trying to do." Have you peeled the onion back on that one?
Yeah, so I keep telling everyone that volatility is a feature, not a bug. It will happen. It will continue to be volatile. And if we are thinking about Bitcoin, then we have to think in 4 or 5 year time frames. And if we are thinking in 4 and 5 year time frames, then every time we have extra fiat that we can store away for 4 or 5 years, we should store it away in Bitcoin. And that will always be more fiat 5 years out and exponentially, or maybe not exponential, but multiple times more fiat. And so that's what I think. In the near term, everyone who is in this space is trying to do the best that they can given their situation. So I don't know what's in Jerome's situation, but from maybe he's just objectively telling that maybe it's a signal to the Congress saying pass a law so that I can hold Bitcoin. Today I don't have a law, so it's outside my federal charter, but the Congress has the charter, and maybe Congress needs to pass a law. So that's the version of it. Maybe he's just trying to say that he is. Yeah, he doesn't like Bitcoin, and maybe I don't know. So there could be a spectrum of what only he knows what he's trying to do. If I think about it, there are multiple ways to interpret all of these signals and multiple ways to incorporate these signals into what action should we take next day. So from a store of value communication perspective, I think this is great to reiterate that this will be volatile. This is cheap sats available, less than 100K sats available for a long-term person to store value in stats. And these are opportunities, at least from my business standpoint, these are opportunities. This is reiterating, saying, if you're coming to Bitcoin and storing value in Bitcoin, remember it'll be volatile. And every time you get a dip, try and stack sats. And if you're very scared about it, don't sell, spend your time reading about it. So just getting off zero is the hardest part. Once you've got off zero, the next hardest part is holding. And if you can hodl, the next hardest part is keep going down the rabbit hole to try and understand all the facets of Bitcoin, and then it almost changes you and transforms you, and that is when you start building of how can I leverage all of these properties into all things that I do for creating value in the society. So those are the things that I think everyone will go through, and I think it's unprecedented opportunity.
So I mean, it's just like just a deep I mean, there's just so many things going on underneath the hood that I just 11, what, 12, 13 years in, and I still can't stop thinking about it, can't stop talking about it. So I was gonna say, so there's within the kind of the Bitcoin world, there's uh I mean, like I said, there's decentralization, open source, there's this payment network, there's this digital gold narrative, right? Now more and more companies are starting to adopt it. So are you tracking this Bitcoin as a treasury asset, like the whole Michael Saylor move? Do you have any? I mean, it's just everyone's talking about it. Even I think this sounds a bit derogatory, but like my normie friends, all of them are calling me now saying, "Hey, I'm buying Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy." What are your thoughts on that? I know it's not like squarely in your guys' kind of wheelhouse, but curious as a
No,
Bitcoiner.
completely. I think so. I was speaking to one of the royal families in UAE, and we were trying to share with them of how Bitcoin is a different digital asset compared to all the other cryptocurrencies in general, and explaining how these are two separate pieces. So I think what's happening is that everyone is trying to understand Bitcoin, and it's a journey and a spectrum where people will always, or most of us, I started there, and most of us will start there to say, why can't I create a better Bitcoin, and why a newer cryptocurrency is not a better version of it? Because we'll be looking at it from a technology lens, and generally, in a technology lens, if a previous technology is there and some new version of it comes because technology improves, it might be a cheaper, better, faster version of it. But we are missing the monetary lens, and it's hard because monetary protocols have not changed in centuries, right? I was born with a monetary protocol. My parents were born with a monetary protocol. I have never seen it change. I have never read books about it being changed. So it's really hard to have this. But once you understand it, so in this spectrum, you start from technology and cryptocurrency, and then you try and understand of what's happening on it becoming a new protocol, which will be the monetary protocol of the world. That is the spectrum, and depending on where you are in the spectrum, you would have different applications. So I believe Michael is at the end of the spectrum, and at the end of the spectrum, he believes that this, just because this is a new monetary protocol which will subsume everything. So imagine Bitcoin going to $450 trillion of assets, as Michael calls it. And if you are at that level of conviction and belief, then it seems like very easy for you to not do anything but change your fiat base to this and keep finding more and more fiat to keep moving to this protocol, because it's a very simple math, right? Then it becomes mathematical, and then only time will tell whether it will be successful or not. Because yes, in a long enough time frame this will happen, but what is that long enough time frame, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, is what is only time will tell. And what gotcha moments and how life and politics and the world will evolve is still to be seen. But if you think about it from a first principles basis, this seems like the easiest arbitrage trade which is available for the world. If you have access to fiat, you should sell anything and everything to get that access to fiat and move it to Bitcoin. Only thing that you might want to remember is that can you hold that Bitcoin without being called upon to return that fiat? Because in the short run, it will be volatile. And
Yeah.
Michael seems to have figured it out, that he seems to have figured it out. He's issuing 5 year bonds, which means in 5 year, when the call will come on his fiat, he will most likely have already out, or Bitcoin have outperformed in fiat equivalent terms. And either he'll be able to roll over his debt, or he will be able to repay if need be, from the extra value that Bitcoin have created. So it seems like a no-brainer, and it seems like more and more people will get it. And whether there are there are intermediary challenges and intermediary like interim challenges, because Bitcoin is volatile. So for some reason, let's say Bitcoin comes to $15,000. I know there's no way in hell that it will, but assuming it does, then those are the challenges that you have to be prepared for, and that those are the challenges that will maybe create a lot of panic or pressures or problems for anyone who is maybe on MSTR or a leveraged Bitcoin play. But if you can hold it for 5 years, and if Michael can hold it for 5 years, and Michael can keep running MicroStrategy for 5 years, it's a no-brainer, right? Let's say that you bought MSTR and you can put it in some cold storage and forget about it for 5 years, and Michael can survive 5 years, then seems like a no-brainer, right? Because it's just a simple arbitrage that on fiat versus Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying watching the game theory play out, right? Between nation states, like what, like you said, what'll happen when the US really starts to put Bitcoin in the strategic reserve. What is that going to mean for com countries like India? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that they must have people behind closed doors at least scratching their head a little bit, going, okay, we need to get our head around this thing, because it's no longer like, oh, let's study it and figure out what it is and try and kill it. It's more like, wait, I think we might have, missed an opportunity here, and we've got to error correct as fast as humanly possible. So,
Yeah.
and then now you're seeing it play out amongst pubcos, which is interesting. I don't know if you heard, even one in India called Jet King
Yeah.
recently talked a
Yeah.
little bit about it, right? So anyway, so anything else? So, oh, right, one question I had for you was, so again, given all these uh, curves and, little, what's it called? Just there's so much to learn about this topic. Do you have, like a a place where you send new people in terms of like, okay, so somebody's like, I really want to learn. Where do you send them? Do you send them to Michael Saylor's University? Is it bitcoin.org like we used to do back in the day? Is it, I don't know, Khan Academy? Where's your favorite place to send people?
So I think there are multiple, as you rightly mentioned, there are multiple avenues now compared to what it was in 2014, 15. I definitely ask people to start with trying to read the Bitcoin standard on SAF's starting point, because that gives a grounding on money. And because even after being at City for 13 years, I didn't understand money. I want to be very open and honest, saying that during that time, my understanding of money versus my understanding of what is money is completely different. And no, I didn't see anyone teaching me either in college or any books available, or even my banking career teaching me about what is money. So that's what I think could be very helpful and powerful. But I also realize that every individual who I'm trying to communicate this is coming from some point of view. And I try and understand that point of view. So someone might come it from a humanitarian point of view, someone might come it from a monetary point of view, someone might come it just from a gains perspective, that I want to be rich. And there's no wrong answers. And depending on that, and someone might come it from a technology lens perspective, then I might send them to Jeff Booth to say how technology always deflationary, and why deflation is good for mankind, and how all of us live better lives than maybe Roman kings were able to ever imagine and live. It's all because of technology, and how technology has made things cheaper, faster, better. So depending on the person, I try and tell them what's the starting point. But Saif's book is a great starting point. Understanding money is a great starting point. And then just going curious and trying to find your own journey on the internet, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on podcast, and then discovering post that one small tick of what is money kind of question could be the best way to dip your toe in it. But
So
I would also want to add that 90% of people that I speak to ignore it and don't spend the time. Maybe 95% of people, they just don't spend the time to learn about it.
yeah, there's a beautiful video. It used to be on bitcoin.org. Do you remember this? Or I don't know if you remember it, but it was like a cartoon. And again, when I think about like 2013, 2014, there was this one video that I used to send everybody, and it was like, and I think it's on bitcoin.org still, but it was just like simple. It was like 2 minutes long, and it at least touched on some of the high level things, right? So maybe with someone needs to create some more content, like it's easy to digest, a little bit fun. Because I love the book that you mentioned, right? The Bitcoin Standard by Saif. I actually had a good fortune of meeting him in Nashville, I think it was this year. So I love that book. But like you said, how many people even like reading? Not many that I know.
Not
Right.
many other people.
So anyways, but I think like you said, there's probably more than enough resources now with YouTube and
Yeah.
podcasts that anybody can get their head around it. Cool.
Yeah, if you just go to YouTube and Google what is Bitcoin, you will get 20 maybe contents. And if you scroll through a couple of them, some of them will be good, some of them would be average. But yeah, there
So,
will
so
be.
are you a tech guy or more of a business guy or both? Like, what's your background in terms
So
of?
I'm a historically a business guy with Amazon. I oversaw tech, so I then became a tech and a business guy. So that's what my exposure has been. But I don't code. I don't go and write software, but I can understand what an API means, and I can read and understand why this can work or not work.
Interesting. Interesting. Are you following the AI revolution a little bit?
Yeah.
And I guess where I'm going with this is, do you see these two technologies, Bitcoin and AI, being potentially complementary? Are they adversarial? Do they have nothing to do with one another? Do you think much about that?
Yeah, so I am a little early, or maybe not spend enough time to understand AI. I've been a user of AI. So as a consumer of AI, I think I love what AI provides in terms of ability for customers to do stuff which was harder, and can make it cheaper, faster, better. So I think AI has a lot of potential for humanity. From a Bitcoin lens perspective, I think that money is the lubricating oil of the economy. And when today, imagine that the world uses individual lubricating oils for each country, and each time you want to cross or hop borders, you have to change that lubricating oil. And Bitcoin represents an opportunity to, one, be the single lubricating oil, or make interoperability, hopping from one to another, much easier. So everything which is commerce has 50% of it is money. And that inefficiency or that efficiency, so inefficiency in the current system, efficiency in the Bitcoin standard world, just releases too much of untapped potential, or releases cost, or removes costs and barriers to accelerate everything that is already happening. And then you add to it what AI does, from the native capability of technology to be able to be more to be more productive. So you have the technology which is becoming more productive by leveraging AI, and then you have the lubricating oil which is reducing barriers and making it more productive. So these two technologies, I believe, would be just very, very beneficial for humanity. Um, I, I think there's the lens in terms of whether AI can be more powerful than humans and stuff. That lens is what I have not explored too deeply, but I sometimes worry about whether the technology needs some yeah, maybe that technology needs some kind of a direction, channeling to serve in the development of humanity, versus against humanity, because yeah, that's
So we
what
spend
the
a lot of time talking about like Bitcoin versus the traditional financial system, the payment networks, the gold, right? Um, but and you kind of touched on a little bit how Bitcoin is very different from crypto. I'm just curious. So Elon Musk seems like a smart guy.
yeah,
He's kind of gone down a different path, right? Like
yeah.
I think Tesla does hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think SpaceX holds it still. Yet he goes on these like never-ending rants. Now he's created a Department of Government Efficiency, which is kind of genius in a way, right? Like he's forcing the media to talk about Doge in this indirect but direct way. Thoughts on this like development? I mean, like I said, most people who know me, they know that I've been like a Bitcoin maxi. It's always Bitcoin, Bitcoin or nothing. Um, but when I show Doge, I'm not gonna lie to my kids, to my, wife, to my people find it cute and it's hard to hate
Yeah,
on that. So
yeah.
what's maybe what is he missing or is he maybe onto something?
Yeah, I don't know. I think humans are complex, and he did. I think in one of the interviews I did read that he called about to say that humor has value in society, and he thinks about Doge being some play on humor, and how can you leverage humor to have something on society, so that or some value from a society perspective. Yeah, so he's just created tremendous value, in my opinion, for people in general. He's built amazing companies, so I have a lot of respect for him as an individual. But we all are humans, we all are fallible. I don't know what he sees. Maybe he. I think, like everything else in life, it's gray and it's a spectrum. And in that spectrum, we all have our own egos which are interfering, and my ego might be interfering of saying, oh, I've understood Bitcoin and now I am not being open to understand anything else. It might be all of that blockers and my filters which might be doing it. But depending on whatever I have been able to through based on my learnings, I think Bitcoin is the future. Now, what role does Doge play? I don't have a point of view, but Elon is a great guy, so I'm sure he has something valuable for the society.
Yeah, I always say, I mean, Bitcoin is definitely my favorite thing. But if I had a gun to my head and somebody said you have to pick one thing that you're more bullish on than Bitcoin, I would say it's the free market, right? So I
Yeah,
think people's freedom to choose whatever they please is
yeah.
ultimately, I think, where he goes. So, okay, great. I think, we've gone quite a long while here. I'm sorry for being a bit late. Anything you want to leave the audience with? Anything maybe that we didn't touch on? Do you want to talk a little bit more about GetBit or any other topics in the Bitcoin arena?
Yeah, I think my only learning from Bitcoin is that if you understand it, continue to be humble and keep stacking. If you don't understand it, it is okay. Keep studying, and it just makes you a better individual. At least that's what it's done to me. So I'm eternally thankful to the energy of Bitcoin, to the energy of Satoshi, to have created something which has not only directly impacted me as an individual, but has impacted the world. And I think it will change us and transform us as a society. I believe Bitcoin's discovery is as big as the discovery of fire or wheel from a humanity perspective. So, and if you're watching this, and even if you're not stacking sats, my only request is try and study and try and see why so many people are so excited about it. And yeah, get off zero. If you are in India, getting off zero, getbit.in is one place where you can get off zero. And then yeah, then as your stack increases, think about custody. So think about how you are custodying your Bitcoin and what is counterparty risk. So that's the piece where in the traditional world, I have never thought about counterparty risk. I have assumed the counterparties are good because that risk has not played out in the last 40, 50 years. It has played out in small numbers, but as a societal level, it has not played out. But counterparty risk is a huge risk. And if you have an opportunity to remove that counterparty risk, then try and think about it. And it's becoming simpler and simpler. And what Bitcoin does is helps you focus your energy into doing things that you really love and then not worry about storing value, because when you are able to store value, that gives you a like a deep subconscious confidence that if life throws a curveball at you, you have something that you can fall back to. And that confidence that helps you excel as an individual to do what you're best at. You could be a craftsman, painter, sports person, whatever you are. Just focus the energy doing that versus trying to spend 50% of your energy on trying to save monetary value. So that's what Bitcoin has done for me. I'm eternally thankful for it. And yeah, would just encourage people to continue their learning journey and get off zero.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Um, Before I let you go, I got to bring up one last topic because you're talking about self-custody, something that I'm also a big fan of. Um, but some of the bigger companies in India more recently have shut their crypto withdrawals, right, without mentioning any names. We also had a big, uh, you could say, implosion, right, amongst
Yeah.
probably one of the market leaders in India recently. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it definitely
Yeah.
hurts. I'm not gonna lie, like to know that so many people are going through that pain of having to learn that lesson that you just mentioned in such a tough way, right? But Yeah, any reflections, anything you think people should maybe learn from this experience and do
Yeah, I
differently?
think I think education costs. So don't worry about what you've lost or what's stuck. Think of it like education cost and think of it. It is painful, right? It's very, very painful. But imagine that when you're doing something which is still early, there is a cost, there is an education cost, or there is a learning cost that is there. Think of it as a learning cost. If at the cost of that learning, if you can still start stacking sats in 5 years, this cost will be worth it. So if I have lost, let's say, 50,000 rupees, and I'm not saying any rupees is small money. It could be life savings, and it could be very, very material impact to that individual. But if you think of it that I have learned my lesson, why did it happen, what were the risks in it, and I have removed those risks, and I've started stacking sats, and I can stack only 1,000 rupees per month or 5,000 rupees per month. If I do this for 5 years or 3 years or 4 years and 5 years, 5 years out, 2029, 2030, I this learning cost of 50,000 rupees would be very well served, is almost like guaranteed if I do take it as a learning and go through the reasoning of why I lost my assets and what could have protected me, and just start your journey afresh. And yeah, and I have a lot of trust and faith in the Indian legal regulatory process as well. So that process will continue, and hopefully. Some part of that asset will also get returned to you. But the big in my mind, and my son is a sports person, and I keep telling him to say, if you lose a match and you take learning, so either you win a match or you take learnings from it. If you don't take learnings and you didn't win the match, then you really lost. So if I apply that in this situation, saying if you won and you made money, great. That's very good. You already won. But if you lost, then what's the learning from it? If you don't take away the learning, you really lost. But if you take the learnings and apply the learnings, very soon in this same industry, in this same learning, you will be a winner in 5 years.
And just on the final note there, so any thoughts on the companies that are still alive but don't offer crypto withdrawals? Is that like do you feel that it's being a bit of an injustice, or I mean, especially given what we just faced in the last few months?
No, I don't think it's an injustice. I think it's business models. So
Hmm.
I think if my business model is to help you trade and help you make more value by trading, then letting you go away from my system would be like, think of it like I'm Google or Facebook and I'm letting you go to TikTok. I won't want you to go to TikTok. I want you to be embedded in my. So that's the business model. So if you are a trader and you want to trade, then there are platforms which are available for trading. And I believe that's the business model for that platform. And it is a commercial decision for them to serve their customers best, and they might be choosing them. Um, uh, for our business model is to help you uh, uh, buy an asset to store value. And our business model is not to help you get very quick trading returns. And for that, we believe that by letting you own your Bitcoin, we are not only helping you, we are also helping reduce the systemic risk. Because if there is a lot of coins that we are holding, then we have to take care of safekeeping that. But if you are holding, then that risk gets distributed or removed because you have a separate physical place and a separate OPSEC to store that. And I think custody is also a hard topic, and hard on this to bring multi-sig custody to some of our users and making custody simple. I remember that initially when someone told me how to self-custody, and I learned the single sig custody of using a hardware wallet and seed phrase and mnemonics, it was intellectually and cognitively hard, and I didn't want to take the moral responsibility of what if I lose these 24 words. So those are the things which from a UI UX solution perspective also has to evolve and change. So that's the responsibility that is on us who are serving this space to make it simpler and simpler for people. And multi-sig then removes a single point of failure. It makes holding Bitcoin simpler, where one key, which is the primary key, could be held very simply on a simple iOS kind of interface, while the second key could be held either by a custodian or by us, and that where could be cold storage hardware device. So those are the I think it's a spectrum and it's a journey, and there is the business model where people so you as a customer have to then decide what is it that you are looking for. If you're looking for a service which helps you store value, or your need is to store value, then there might be service providers like GetBit and who might be there to serve your need. But if you want to trade, and you believe that there is trading is what your passion is, and you want to earn revenues from there, then maybe there are other service providers out there in the market who might be able to serve you better. So that's what I think in that space.
Cool, man. Well said. So Abhay, thank you so much for your time and sharing, your great wisdom. I really like the way you say things and the way you describe things. So I wish you the best of luck and yeah, I mean, if there's no more, parting words, no questions, then maybe we'll bring this one to a close and I'll be sharing this in the next day or two with my
Thank
community.
you so much, Sunny. Really appreciate once again. I want to reiterate all the hard work that you've done and you've done for India and Indian Bitcoiners. We will be perpetually indebted to you. You were really early, 2013, 14, educating us. You are still educating us. So please keep up the great work. And I've learned a lot from all the educators you. And India and Indian Bitcoiners has benefited from the hard work that you put. So my personal thanks to you. And I think there's a huge opportunity to keep serving 1.4 billion people. And I would continue to look forward to working with you and your business to serve India and Indians so on their Bitcoin journey.
And it's getbit.in. And what's your Twitter handle so people can,
Uh,
give you a follow as well?
Yeah, so my Twitter is Abhay Hodl. So at the rate Abhay Hodl, ABHayhodl. So that's my
Beautiful.
Twitter handle. And look forward to interacting with more and more people.
Great. Awesome, man. And we're gonna probably start doing some spaces more, often in the new year. That's the plan. So love to have you on as a guest and keep this conversation going. But thank you so much for your time and your kind words.
Thank you so much, Sunny. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay.